The OCD got the better of me, and I wanted to crank out just a very quick video capturing all of my impressions and sort of a mini review on the third issue of Batman 2025, the Fraction-Jimenez run, entitled Crown of Storms. And this one, as you can kind of tell from the cover, which is probably the only other thing that I do think that we should start slowing down on. I don't know if this is maybe what could be considered as a boomer take, as a boomer sort of hot take, but I do think that maybe we should at least kind of slow down on the reveals of covers. I understand that they're almost a marketing ploy at this point to build anticipation for the next issue, but sometimes when you're doing it months in advance, it kind of has the tendency to spoil some things. I understand that we already got the December issue cover out there for people that want to pick it up and maybe kind of compare it towards other variants, but when you already have the January issue, one that inadvertently sort of spoils the direction of a character, especially one that I was able to kind of pull apart a little bit more concretely here in issue number 3, then it starts to become a little bit of a problem. But frankly, I feel like I might just be in the minority in that stance. In terms of impressions and where I feel with issue number 3 here going forward, especially since, like I mentioned before, I've kind of taken a bit of a sabbatical, not even a break, a legitimate hiatus from comic book reading for years. Practically somewhere on the cusp of a decade, mainly because of the overwhelming factor of just how many impressions and portrayals and runs and arcs of The Dark Knight truly are out there. So knowing that there was a hard form of reboot for Batman in the form of this Fraction-Jimenez interpretation, I jumped on board, and those first 2 issues, for the most part, are really, really good, despite my nitpicks, my concerns, my criticisms. Well, those criticisms kind of came forward a little bit more headstrong here with issue number 3 that, as you can tell from the cover, introduces us to the Riddler. And this version of the Riddler is a little bit more, speaking of OCD, it's actually perfectly thematically tied to the actual things that are going on with this version of the Riddler. To keep it vague and spoiler free, this version of the Riddler is most definitely a little bit OCD prone, where it's almost like he's got tics, very verbal tics that tie into riddles, or it's not so much riddles, they're more like jokes. They're more like punchlines that you kind of read off of a joke book rather than actual riddles. And ever so often there's one that maybe kind of delves a little bit into his persona, but for the most part it's just like a quirk. It's like this tic that he has to vomit out verbally, regardless of what kind of environment he is, or if he's going up against the Dark Knight here. Outside of that, it's not really a whole lot to chew on, not only for the Riddler's first appearance here in the 2025 run, but frankly, the story as a whole. There's a development with the reason for why we're about to come to blows between the GCPD and Batman, and exactly what's going on there in the behind the scenes, so to speak. But it's kind of rudimentary. It's kind of like a thing that we've either seen before, or it feels a little arbitrary to where I'm like, really, we're doing that thing that we've seen, and not just Batman comics, but hell, like Scooby-Doo comics. I don't know, just things like that you just kind of feel something that is Batman connected would be a little bit smarter with. And here it's like, okay, we're doing that. We have legacy characters that make appearances here that I'm hoping I get to like a little bit later on, because right now I don't necessarily vibe with them. I feel like they either come off a little cliche or a little bit of a jerk, or just things like that I'm like, all right, like I said, I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but for now there's just not a whole lot to chew on, because I just feel like from page to page there's a character that we've seen in prior iterations before in prior comics, or have made their appearances prior to me even jumping on board for reading, are now popping up here. Characters that appeared in like an issue or 2 before in this current Fraction-Jimenez run are appearing again, but like I said, only like a panel or so. And there is a bit of a lead that the comic ends with, but once more it just kind of ends, and I'm thinking to myself, that's it? And of course we're then led with the brunt of these last 3 or 4 pages that are nothing but just previews or ads or interviews for like the preceding comics. It's something that I've already complained before ad nauseum. So it's something that I'm frankly just gonna have to let go and just kind of look at the issue as a whole and think to myself that this is probably the first issue that has some filler-esque qualities. There's some interesting stuff, but overall I just thought it was kind of like an okay issue. One that I looked at and thought to myself, maybe this is why it's probably not being talked about an awful lot, and probably why between all of the other Batman comics that are currently ongoing, it's the Absolute series that's probably the most justifiable and trending on social media as opposed to the 2025 run. This run hasn't necessarily done anything to garner those kind of headlines. And after reading issue number 3, can kind of understand why. So those are my spoiler-free impressions. Now let's get down to business. It's a good thing that it landed here because I don't know if you can kind of make out right there in terms of actual thickness ratio. This is pretty much the actual bulk of the issue. This is ads. This is previews of other comics that I'm not interested in. Interviews, things like that, advertisements for stuff that's going on HBO Max. Come on, DC. Like, look at this. It's just like 2, maybe 3 pages after the halfway point, and boom, it's over. It's ridiculous. And it's here where, like I mentioned before, it just kind of leads into so much being able to kind of breeze upon and think to myself, yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot to chew on in regards to what was happening here in issue number 3. We have a little bit of connective tissue to what was happening, something that, like I mentioned before, we could have predicted from a mile away. Vandal Savage, is a dick. He's trying to frame Batman. What are his direct motives? We don't know, and that's probably going to be unfolded in the coming issues. But for now, his approach is just so, like I said, very standard and generic. Oh, I'm going to put this Batarang right here. And it just happens to be captured by some kid that happens to zoom in on a phone with a phone. I don't know what it is, but there's something just so trivial about it that I'm like, really? We're doing this? I don't know. There's something that I think could have been done smarter. And yet this is something that I see on a Disney Channel movie or something. You know what I'm saying? Like someone getting caught with like the phone and it ends up being, like I said, this kid. Like a kid? I don't know. There's just something about it that I'm like, really? This is what we're doing? And so he obviously has a thread left of open for interpretation here as he's going to the press or someone who seemingly works for the press, all while Batman is now apprehending Riddler, who's trying to take hold of the machine that this Dr. Zello is working on. And once more, Dr. Seller makes an appearance, but again, it's just on a news broadcast. Hugo Strange finally makes an appearance in said broadcast, so we know that he exists in this universe. It's just a shame that now he's another one that's tossing around the word Nazi for no reason. Again, it's like we're diluting that word, and now it's being included here in a Batman comic. So that's why I'm kind of reading through it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling an awful lot of like modern world echoing into the comic, and it's bad enough that we see so much of the modern world social media platforms that now we're seeing it a little bit here in the Batman comic. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, it is what it is. And so as I kind of just navigate from page to page, we see a little bit more of Bruce sort of reintroducing himself to characters that are, like I mentioned before, legacy characters, trailing back all the way to years or practically decades at this point. Like Harvey Bullock does exist in this universe, and now he's working-ish kind of sort of with Gordon to give him the insight that, yeah, the GCPD is sort of corrupt. They're gunning for Batman, so that way you know exactly what's going down ahead of time. But then also characters that are technically a little bit more recent, and at first I thought were making their first appearance here, only to realize that they kind of been around, but not for that long. They've been around for years, but we're talking 4 years, since 2021. Characters like Bernard, who apparently has a bit of a past, a bit of an intimate past with this version of Robin, Tim Drake, because as your best buddies are probably going to visit you at the hospital, but they're not going to be as touchy-feely as they were here with Bruce's appearance and the fact that whenever Bruce is around, Robin gets hurt. So it's like, okay, you definitely feel for Robin a little bit more, and they're continuing that thread line from prior comics here. So it's kind of interesting that Fraction-Jimenez Batman is being seen as a reboot, except it's taking elements and continuing them, so it's kind of like a pseudo reboot in that regard. But at the same time, like I said, there's versions of legacy characters like Riddler who are simply just got like these ticks, but at least it's because of him that gives us our new lead, which is that we're going to Arkham next. We're definitely going towards Arkham, which looks like it's been like revitalized. You got like the Arkham Towers over there in the distance, so I'm eager to see how this take of Arkham is going to be interpreted. And apart from that lead, which also has Batman riding in the Batmobile wearing a brand new suit, we finally get, I guess, our second most different suit from the initial blue and gray suit that is now being designed artistically by Jimenez. We got this form of a stealth suit, which, in my opinion, kind of, if anything else, resembles the suit that Jim Gordon wore at one point that's predominantly black with a little bit of yellow, only this time it's got some like holographic fringes to it in terms of how the yellow symbol's sort of glowing. He's sort of kind of got this neat little reflective pattern with a bit of a sheen, a bit of a coat that is kind of brown blackish with the red eyes. It looks pretty dope, and I'm eager to see if there's ever going to be a action figure interpretation of that outside of the default Jimenez blue and gray that I'm kind of anticipating McFarlane to deliver us upon at some point. But outside of that, and of course the further hinting that Alfred is more than likely dead considering his holographic appearance, the disappearance, I should say, of Damien, considering that we get flashbacks to something that may have gone down between him and Damien, which is not necessarily anything out of the ordinary, but it's sort of triggered by that initial interview of Zeller saying that, hey, what if childhood trauma could be repressed? And obviously it cuts to Batman in the hospital, kind of smiling at the fact, at the concept of being able to suppress this thing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but isn't that what made you? Isn't that what made you Batman in the first place? You really want to truly go back and suppress that, with Zeller using Van Gogh as a reference? And that's ultimately what flashed us back to that scene with Damien fighting, sparring, missing out on his childhood, etc. But also, again, bringing back that holographic outfit. It's cool to see that we're not getting a full-blown explanation. That's probably one of the few other interesting factors that keeps me anticipating this issue month to month. But issue number 3 is probably the first one that I thought was simply just okay. Was simply just, as the kids like to say these days, sort of mid at best. I'm still intrigued to pick up issue number 4, but this is probably the first bump in the road that makes me think number 5 in January. If things don't pick up by issue number 5, then I'm probably gonna have to take my my comic book money elsewhere and maybe pick up that Zoo hardcover issue that kind of encompasses the first 6 issues of Absolute Batman and give that one a go. And frankly, that's all of the real spoilers I can kind of conjure up in regards to thoughts, criticisms held within Batman number 3 from Fraction-Jimenez. If you guys picked it up, let me know what you guys think. Are you guys still down for this run and are eager to pick up issue number 4 before the year's end? Or do you think that the chinks in the armor are starting to somewhat appear? Do you think that we're simply just in a bit of a lull where not all of them could be bangers, and maybe issue number 4 will be like that 4th episode in every Disney Plus show that finally manages to pick up the pace? We'll see, but for now, I'm still on the wagon, but the wheels started to kind of creak and wobble a little bit. So we'll see exactly what kind of goes down, but for now, I definitely understand exactly why it is that the Absolute storyline, whether it be with Batman or even the rest of the Trinity, are definitely really conquering the social media platforms, because even I'm down to at least pick up a few more of those issues and maybe delivering on some kind of comprehensive video looking back at Absolute Batman that's now been going on for about a year. And if you guys want to check out that video, let me know down in the comments. Make your voices and thoughts be heard. And while you guys are down there, hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this little mini review of issue number 3. Thumbs down if you didn't. And as always, take care, stay humble,